We're talking about identity and having a kingdom identity, but what is an identity anyhow? Your identity is the story you tell yourself about yourself. So the most predominant stories that we tell ourselves shape our identity. It doesn't make any difference really what story you have. It's the one you have been telling yourself the most that becomes your primary identity. This is incredibly important for us to begin to differentiate. What Jesus wants from us is to have a primary identity that we are his children. We are his subjects. This comes most powerfully in the Beatitudes, in the sixth Beatitude, the first of the third triad. Remember, the first three are about those who receive a surprise welcome into God's kingdom: the poor, the really sad, and the powerless, the ones who have no influence. That Jesus is saying his kingdom is wide open to anyone. And most importantly, in the context, for those that were least likely to enter the kingdom in the eyes of the world around them, especially the religious world, Jesus says, my doors are wide open to you. The second triad is those whose character is most at home in the kingdom, those who hunger and thirst for things to be right, among others, for things to be right with people, righteousness, for those who are merciful, for those who have a pure heart. These are the ones whose constant life is being shaped and reshaped, formed and reformed by the identity they have in Christ. And then the most salient identity statement of all the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. He's saying when people are out there making peace, it's a telltale sign they belong to me. It's an inherent quality for people born of the Spirit to be people that are advocating for others, for people that are stepping in the midst in the fray of discord and trying to help things get resolved and reconciled. This, he says, is the defining characteristic of children of God. So if I've got this kingdom identity that is predominantly influenced by the motivation to create peace, then I must understand what might be secondary identities, what might be inferior ways of seeing myself or inferior stories to my own personal narrative. So think about this. David Benner calls this multiplicity of stories that we can have, narratives that we can tell about ourselves, our part selves. That we have part of ourselves that we might see as a gamer, or part of ourselves that we might see as a sports enthusiast, or as a motorcycle rider, or a hiker, or fill in the blank, a politician, a dentist, a doctor. It can be my identity as received from my family of origin. If I've got a name, if I've been born into a family with a name that carries clout, Rockefeller, Kennedy, Obama, Biden, Bush, right? Any one of our presidents, there could be a dynasty of names in the world of influence. And if that's the case, I've inherited an identity. But is that my primary identity? You see, when Jesus comes in and all of a sudden I'm a child of God, it trumps my biological identity, my born identity. It trumps it. It's more significant, more powerful. And my born identity as Lies, which is a German name, which could have a German identity, an ethnic identity, whatever that is, it's now subservient to my new kingdom identity. I might have an identity about what I do, right? If I'm a pastor, and I think that's a great thing. If I'm a politician, and I think that's a great thing. If I'm a doctor, that's a great thing. That can become my primary identity. And when that becomes my primary identity, all of a sudden now my kingdom identity is serving it instead of it serving the identity I have from Jesus. When this happens, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. Whenever, what I've achieved becomes more important than what I've received from Jesus, that's dangerous. If I think I've achieved a BA, then I got my MBA, then I got my PhD, therefore I can act like an ASS, that's a problem, right? What I've achieved is my primary identity instead of what I've received from Jesus, there's a problem. Jesus wants us to have more important than anything else, clarity about who I am. You think about when Jesus was tempted by Satan in Matthew chapter 4, right? The context that leads into the Sermon on the Mount. When Jesus was tempted, what did Satan do? He says, if you are the Son of God, then do this. If you are the Son of God, then do this. He was challenging Jesus' story about himself, his identity. If you're this, then do what I say. If you're this, show off what you got. If you're this, take charge of what you have. You see, what Satan wants us to do is get real confused about who we are. He wants us to have more important to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps than to follow in Jesus' footsteps. He wants us to take our identity into our own hands instead of place our identity into God's hands. Satan always wants you to question who you are, and he always wants you to question who God says you are. So who does God say you are? God says that you are a chosen person, that you belong to his kingdom, that you have meaning and purpose as it relates to your relationship with God and your role as a subject of God, as a child of God, as a servant of God, as someone who lives in Jesus' kingdom. You serve under Jesus as King. What's your primary identity? In our series, when we are being refined by what Jesus says about us, it changes everything else about us. It makes us see and lean most fully and most completely on a relationship with God above all else. So today, is there any shaping of your primary identity that needs to happen? Or maybe some reshaping of it? Is there any forming of who you are as a child of God that should take a higher priority? Or maybe some reforming of who you are, so you can say above all else, I am loved by the King of the world, the King of the universe. Lord, thank you for making me your child. Let my every thought and every heart desire be acceptable in your sight. Lord, make us more like you. I'll see you tomorrow.